I think my favorite enemy to capture in Mario Odyssey is the Pokeyo. There's so much to like about this little guy, especially from a gameplay perspective. Yes, okay, he's really cute, and Nintendo absolutely needs to make a Pokeyo amiibo ASAP, but this little bird is every bit as interesting as he is adorable. Not only can he take out enemies and rolling bombs with a quick jab of his beak, but he can also peck into walls and use his flexible snoot as a way to spring up and down surfaces that Mario can't otherwise access. As cool as this is, I think there's something more at play here that makes this little woodpecker one of Mario Odyssey's strongest cast members. I'm Daryl, and this is Forging the Level. Do you remember this obstacle in Ocarina of Time? If so, you'll remember that it's okay. It's certainly different than moving boxes or shifting a mirror. You need to get Link from the bottom of this wall to the top, but Link can only grab onto the rougher panels of the wall, and some of those panels are moving left and right. So you need to be careful when you climb up. You'll have to watch out for the Skulltula and be careful that Link doesn't get drug into some spikes or get caught between moving segments. So the challenge is there, but it's a bit laborious to complete. It's not exactly fun to get past this part, especially if you're bad at Zelda like me and you fall back to the floor 3 or 4 times. Eventually, you might get frustrated and then remember that you can skip a good chunk of it with your hookshot, which you do, and then you finally make it to the top. Never a good thing when you actually want to skip a portion of the game. Compare that wall to this one. There are a lot of the same things going on here. For one, Pokeyo can only latch on to the soft panels of the wall. The metal bits are a bit too solid for his beak. So, you can only navigate a limited portion of the surface, just like we saw before. You also get sections that pull you into spikes. But even with all of the similarities, if we compared both sections, I think we would all agree that the Bowser Kingdom is much more enjoyable to play. Sure, it does have a spinning panel early on, plus the music and colors are much more lively than the Spirit Temple. But I think the key difference is the way you move. There's something really nice about Pokeyo's spring mechanic. Holding up on the joystick to climb is fine, it works, but it's not very flashy. It's a one-step process. In contrast, with Pokeyo, you've got to A. Press and hold to jab the wall, B. Build up tension in the opposite direction you want to go with the joystick, C. Release the joystick and let him fly, and D. Press and hold to jab again when you're ready to latch back onto the wall. A 4-step process that I think really brings you closer to the feeling of scaling a high barricade. You'll need to physically hold a button to hold onto the wall, and each time you release and let Pokeyo fly, you have a tiny panic attack because you could fall if you can't manage to latch back on. You're unlikely to fall as Link unless your timing is way off. In fact, from here you could put the controller down and he would still hold on for hours. Luckily, this is addressed later. But I think there's something deeper to Pokeyo's movement than his ability to simulate the feeling of climbing up to a high peak. Even if you're playing with the new mechanic early in the stage, when there is no threat of falling, it's still really enjoyable to do. The way his beak coils up, builds tension, and then releases is pleasant. There's something satisfying about it. You might have felt something like that before if you've ever watched those weirdly satisfying compilations on YouTube and Facebook. Cakes that are being iced with neatly swirled designs, animations of shapes falling perfectly into place, and woodworking are just a few examples. Psychologists still aren't 100% certain on what makes things like this so relaxing and satisfying to watch, but there is speculation. Sarah Keedy, the director of the University of Chicago Neuroscience Laboratory, sat down with Discover magazine to discuss what could be going on when people watch videos like this. She stated that videos like this serve as visual depictions of rewarding experiences, which makes them popular, especially among those with OCD. So basically, by watching, you get the subconscious feeling that you have accomplished something, a task was just completed in front of your eyes. And that follows. A common characteristic of a lot of these videos is that there is a transition from disorder to order. When a clay bowl is sculpted, it's gone from a messy clump to beautiful pottery. Similarly, if you clean your apartment, it's gone from messy to organized. In both cases, you feel better, satisfied, when the task is complete. Only the former required zero work on your part, which is why you can watch those videos on repeat for longer than you'd like to admit. Order feels good, and that transition from disorder to order is embedded into our friend Pokeyo's design. When he bends his beak to build up energy for the spring, that's creating the disorder. And when he releases it to jump onto the next spot, that's the order. It may be subtle, but each and every jump that you make with him is quietly scratching that little invisible itch in your mind. The very same itch that the strangely satisfying videos scratch. And since this is how little Pokeyo gets around, you'll be scratching that itch over and over again. It feels productive to move towards a goal like the end of the level, but our little friend helps us double down on that sensation of progression because each individual jump simulates accomplishment like those videos. Now, you may be a little skeptical. It's understandable to think that playing as an Instagram video with a beak is a little far-fetched. Nintendo probably wasn't trying to incorporate satisfying video psychology into Bowser's Kingdom, and I'd bet you're right. I highly doubt that they were. But I think that it is there nonetheless, and here's why. What if we didn't let the order happen? What if we held the tension and kept things in a state of disorder? Imagine freezing a rock with stasis in Breath of the Wild, swinging away at it as the energy stacks up to a peak, the pressure and tension builds and is ready to erupt across the screen, and then it just stays that way. It keeps blinking faster and faster, but doesn't go anywhere. It just stays in this state of almost. I don't know about you, but for me, that would be torture. Let's apply it to Pokeyo. What if we latch onto a wall, take aim, and then... I couldn't do it anymore. I hope you get the point. It's sort of like the friend you grew up with who would always hold Mega Man's Charge Blast for way too long, up to the point where you would actually get mad at him. Mega Man's Charge Shot is cut of the same cloth. In fact, we probably enjoy it so much because of the same reasons we find Pokeyo's movement so satisfying. Holding the blast for too long keeps you in that state of disorder, a need for resolution or finality. Only, in this case, the audio cue is more striking. There's no bowed beak. Instead, you're listening to this high-frequency ringing, which is nice at first, but gets a bit unsettling if it goes too long. When you release it and shoot the blast, not only is it dropping the tension, it's making that vexing ringing stop, which serves as negative reinforcement. You're rewarded by the removal of the ringing. Oh, and Pokeyo has this too. Another reason why releasing the tension is so satisfying. But this is only half of the equation. When Mega Man finally fires his blast, it makes a really nice electrical zapping noise, which serves as the positive reinforcement. The zap sound effect and the sounds of enemies exploding is an added reward for releasing the blast. And of course, Pokeyo has this too, in the form of a resounding spring noise. So that's Pokeyo. I've heard several folks suggest that you can make an entire game out of his movement alone, and I completely agree. When you add two different levels of reinforcement on a mechanic like that, players are going to love to do it. It's exactly what Capcom did with the Blue Bomber's weapon of choice, and obviously, use of the Buster is a massive slice of the game. Adding that tension to the most basic of actions really adds to the feel. Rovio knew this back in 2009. Do you think Angry Birds would have been so successful if anything other than a tight slingshot was used to fire the birds? Maybe, but the tension and release of the slingshot only helped to make it as satisfying as it was. All that to say, if you're making a game about one or two big actions, find ways to reward the player for doing the action itself via sounds, visuals, haptic feedback, and the like before you start crafting levels. And if you can find a way to make that action transition from a state of disorder to order, you'll have a mechanic that players will find borderline therapeutic. Hey, thanks for joining me today. A huge thanks goes out to all of the subscribers who have joined this community over the past month. It has been a ton of fun hearing your feedback on the episodes, seeing you interact with each other in the comment section, and really rewarding to get your opinion on some of these concepts behind gaming. I'd like to send a massive thanks to Leo Ennis, who was kind enough to provide Portuguese captions on my last episode, where I took a deep dive into the Brazilian indie platformer Dandara. A large slice of Dandara's fanbase is in Brazil, and thanks to Leo, that portion of the fanbase can engage with that episode as well. As always, feel free to share with a friend, and I will see you next time.